This is Hemet.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support this show. And let me give a shout out to some of our more recent supporters. They include Max Trollbot, excellent name, Richard S., Julia W., Jason B., Sam D., Aunt Joe, Joel H., Amy, and Ann A. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, gang.
And we have many things to discuss. Are you ready for this?
Is there any good news coming to me today?
No.
Oh, boy.
I do what I can. Let's start with something that happened with an Illinois lawmaker. It doesn't happen that often, but this one did. So about a week ago, the United States House, every time it begins its workday, they start with an invocation. Long discussion over whether they should even be doing that, but they do. And last week, the invocation was delivered by a Sikh leader in New Jersey. Not even going to try to pronounce his name, even though I am brown, and he is too. But he's from South Jersey. He was a Sikh leader. And his remarks, if you listen to his couple-minute invocation, they were inclusive. They're in line with what other guest chaplains say. He basically asked for the universal creator God to keep his divine hand over this house. He called on members to use sound judgment and love and create a more peaceful world.
And the Republicans hated it.
So the amazing thing is he was if you are a guest invocation speaker, you have to be invited by a member of Congress. Who invited this guy? It was a Republican, Representative Jeff Van Drew, who actually told a reporter, I'm quoting here, what makes America special is that we can honor these traditions. He said it weirdly. We can honor these different traditions while staying true to our own. I will always stand for that kind of mutual respect.
I'm so suspicious.
I know, right?
It's just throwing up all of my hackles.
It's too classy of a comment to come from a Republican.
Where is he from?
He's from Jersey, too. He's not even the first New Jersey representative to invite a Sikh leader to give an invocation. Yeah. In 2023, Democratic Representative Donald Norcross invited a different Sikh leader, and now this Republican did the same thing, which, I don't want the invocation there at all, but good on these guys for inviting someone who doesn't fit the traditional Christian mold. But because Sikh is not Christian, some Republicans are going to get upset about it. Just the only question is, how are they going to do it? And so Illinois Republican Mary Miller, her sole purpose in life is to make Marjorie Taylor Greene look smart.
Sure.
She posted a tweet. I'm going to read the beginning of it in full. Okay. It is deeply troubling that a Muslim was allowed to lead prayer in the House of Representatives this morning. This should have never been allowed to happen. America was founded as a Christian nation, and I believe our government should reflect that truth, ... This goes on for a little bit.
Oh, boy. How many mistakes did you find in there?
So, just to be clear.
She thought he was Muslim because he's brown.
That is correct.
Which is maybe my favorite light racism of if I see a brown person, they're defo Muslim, because I've never thought about anything else.
She's from super southern Illinois, where she doesn't have a lot of brown people to choose from.
No, southern Illinois.
She does not interact, I assume, with that many brown people.
Can you give me one, what? So Illinois, this is Congress, or this is
Congress.
Okay.
Illinois has, I don't know how many representatives. We gerrymander the hell out of it because we should. Yeah. And most of them are Democrats, but I believe there are 3 Republican Congress people, and they represent by area half the state, but by people, however many
17, 18
right,
people.
Exactly. And so she represents a very rural area in Illinois.
You mean the rural area where I just visited, where they have a giant 200-foot fucking stone cross put up for no specific reason in an otherwise fairly impoverished area?
Someone sent me an article this week where they're like, hey, in the state of somewhere in the South, they just erected another giant Christian cross that costs $250,000, which is more than the GDP of that state, I assume. It's I've seen those stories. I don't know what to add to that one at this point. They're all raising the funds. I just don't know why. What's the point? Yeah. All right, whatever. Anyway, Mary Miller says it's troubling. It's troubling that a Muslim was allowed to lead prayer.
Yeah, sorry, getting back to
There's
this.
so many
Muslim,
problems.
Allowed, not invited.
Right.
Christian Nation.
Troubling because he's just not Christian. This should never have been allowed to happen.
This cannot be the first non-Christian who's done an opening.
He is definitely not the first non-Christian.
So what's going...
He's brown and he was wearing a turban.
Just racism?
Just racism.
Classic racism?
That is correct.
What's this gal's name? Who's an idiot?
Oh, Mary Miller, and she's most famous for, I believe, on January 6th of all days, she literally quoted Hitler and said, like, well, you got to give him credit for one thing. Something, remember her?
I remember her. It's like the train's on time with Mussolini.
Yeah. And she also,
credit's due, I guess.
She also said after Roe v. Wade was overturned,
God.
she said in a speech, this is a victory for white life. And then her people were very quick to be like, she didn't say white. She said
misspoke. Bright,
she wanted to say
life.
Victory for life. And she misspoke and corrected it.
Yeah.
So you're all just interpreting it as white life. It was more like victory for life. Anyway, that's Mary Miller for you. So anyway, here's my favorite thing. The other mistake we didn't even get into is she said America was founded as a Christian nation.
I said that earlier.
That was
you were not listening to me as per usual.
That's not even. That one's not even being discussed. But whatever.
No. We've done that already.
So. If you're going to invite people from all religious backgrounds to give these invocations, the fact that some of people actually invite people from other religious backgrounds should not even be controversial. I mean, it's the least Congress can do if they want to keep up with this charade. Especially, by the way, when earlier this year, shortly after the inauguration, maybe, one Mike Johnson, of all people, Speaker of the House, he invited hate preacher Jack Hibbs, who is Christian, yes, but also one of those, like, this guy just spews really hateful stuff.
Jack Hibbs?
Yeah.
I've never heard that name.
He has said some really vile stuff. If you're going to invite that guy, then don't get mad when someone else invites a perfectly normal, non-controversial brown person.
He's brown and has a turban. Can you think of two scarier things? I mean, you're brown
aware.
And are wearing headphones,
and I'm
scary. Highly threatened.
That's right.
My fight or flight is engaged.
It's going to come back to haunt you. So this woman doesn't understand that Islam and Sikhism are two entirely different religions. She doesn't understand either how extremists can easily hijack a faith if they wanted to. She just tweeted it out because she's just really dumb. She just assumes this guy is a different religion and every member of that religion is evil.
Yeah.
And therefore this guy is evil.
Yeah.
And also,
and that's
guess
how
what?
America works.
Even if he was Muslim, who the hell cares? The invocation this person gave was not controversial. So
boy.
She gets all this backlash.
He didn't even mention white people, I bet.
I know. She gets all this backlash. So thankfully, she deleted her tweet and tweeted something else.
Which was?
Which was this. Let me read it for you.
Which was, I'm a big dumb.
It is
and my
deeply,
face is as dumb as a butt.
Here's what she actually tweeted afterwards. It is deeply troubling that a Sikh was allowed to lead prayer in the House of Representatives this morning. This should never have been allowed to happen. America was founded as a Christian nation, ...
Oh, boy.
Copy pasted the old one, replaced Muslim with Sikh, and because her bigotry was 100% the same, she's like, sorry, wrong type of brown person.
I'm equally angry about any brown person. I want to be clear. This is in my...
Yes. She just replaced the wrong brown person with the correct brown person and continued saying whatever.
That's been in her drafts folders, and she just pulls it up once in a while when she has to.
That is correct.
Holy shit, that's funny. Oh,
right?
Boy, these people are so stupid.
Like,
and
it's racist and bigoted, but it is kind of funny.
It's extremely funny.
And then she deleted that tweet.
Oh, because she realized racism isn't cool, or...
Well, even one Republican colleague said he was, quote, troubled by my colleague's remarks.
Oh, and if a Republican is troubled,
that's like
yourself.
Susan Collins' level of concern. And then he said, this other colleague said, Sikhs are, quote, valued and respected members of our communities, yet they continue to face harassment and discrimination.
In this very house.
And then, after falsely claiming, this is a different Republican, after falsely claiming that, quote, our nation's founding was indeed shaped by Judeo-Christian values, Nick Loloda, who I think is from New York, said the invocation, quote, doesn't violate the Constitution, offend my Catholic faith, or throttle my support for Israel. which no one was asking about. But okay, weird way to say.
Throttle his support? What is that supposed to mean? Is that good or bad?
I think he's kind of libertarian, so he just uses big words to sound smart.
Throttle isn't a big word. It's a small word, but
it's a weird word.
It's a weird word.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Now, Hakeem Jeffries was more blunt. It is deeply troubling that such an ignorant and hateful extremist is serving in the U.S. Congress.
Thank you
much.
Eric
Swalwell from California was more blunt than that. They're not just mean, they're fucking morons. And Jared Huffman...
Hold on. I need to sit with that for a second. Jesus Christ.
Swalwell...
Oh, my God. That felt so good.
I know. I don't know why Democrats don't do more of that. Jared Huffman, the humanist in Congress, said this: I often say that I serve in Congress with some of the greatest minds of the 18th century. With Representative Miller, I may need to take it back a few more centuries. So Mary Miller never responded to the bigotry.
Well, she doesn't have to.
She deleted both tweets. So the Sikh Coalition, a group that works on issues of discrimination and stuff against Sikhs.
What do you mean? Why would they be discriminated against?
They correctly argued deleting the tweets is not enough. She needs to do more. This is what they said. Such hateful rhetoric is not new to our community. It is as tired as it is unacceptable. Despite this, Sikhs will not be deterred from participating in public or civic life. Our community has a long history in Illinois, including in the district that Representative Miller represents, which might be true, but also probably not that many.
Yeah, well.
Now, you mentioned, have there been other non-Christians giving the invocation? Famously, in 2007, back in the day, there was a Hindu leader. He kind of is an independent dude who just kind of does his own thing and causes chaos everywhere. I love this guy.
Love a chaos agent.
But this is a Hindu statesman, is his title, which I think he gave himself. Rajan Zed, he gave an invocation in the U.S. Senate. And at the time, the American Family Association, the Christian hate group, they urged members to complain to their representatives about it, and a handful of Christians staged a vocal protest while he was giving the invocation.
A handful of Christian citizens or Christian senators?
No, a handful of Christian randos in the upstairs viewing area.
Gotcha.
They were they interrupted his invocation because they were dicks.
Oh, I remember.
That was a long time ago.
Do you remember the one where somebody gave a perfectly nice invocation and then somebody came up and did a second Christian invocation?
An atheist in Arizona gave a perfectly fine secular invocation, and then, yes, a Christian colleague
that was so
gave a second
funny.
one because you got to correct it.
What I got to tell you is it makes me extremely happy to see how dainty these people's sensibilities are. They truly are the greatest majority in this fucking country, and all they can do is whine and act like they don't have enough. It's so embarrassing, and I love watching it.
Man, Greg Locke, that hate preacher, remember him?
Yeah.
He chimed in to say, a Sikh chanting to a demon is not freedom of religion, it's Satanism and does not belong in a nation founded on Christianity. Half of those words are capitalized for no reason. But
I'm sorry, capitalized or all caps?
All caps.
Oh, perfect. Like the Bible do.
Weirdly. So there's that.
Oh, boy.
And there's a Theobro pastor.
I can't believe we're still doing this.
Oh, yeah. This one came from Dale Partridge, who's one of those Theobro pastors who's like, I'm a man and you're not, so listen to me. That guy... Here's his entire tweet.
I've never heard of this person, but I hate him.
Here's his entire tweet. This is after the controversy, mind you. With Mary Miller.
Everybody else is over it?
He's still talking about the picture shows the Sikh guy giving the invocation. And he tweets, Hinduism is demon worship. It is loving to outlaw demon worship.
Ooh,
which has a better percentage for wrong things with so few words.
So he got the religion wrong?
Mm-hmm. And then he said he wants to outlaw, I guess, non-Christian religions.
Did he say chanting? Is that what he
said?
He said
it is loving to outlaw demon worship. But Greg Locke talked about chanting.
Oh, the chanting, I
see. Which, by the way, I listened to the invocation. There was no chanting. No, it was just talking, but talking while brown.
So I do forget those rules about being brown and when you're chanting.
If you're wondering, can an atheist give an invocation?
Stop chanting, Hammond.
I know. If you're wondering if an atheist can give an invocation in the house, the Freedom from Religion Foundation's Dan Barker wanted to do that. He said, I am an ordained priest, which is true, and he had a congressman willing to sponsor his invocation, which is also, that's the requisite you need. And the chaplain of the house said, no, we require a religious prayer here. And there was a lawsuit over it. It was later dismissed. So atheists are not allowed to give a secular invocation in Congress.
Cool.
But there
Do
you go.
you know what we need? We need a very, very, very rich person to fund you and I personally so we can just rove around and cause chaos in these like settings of just like, hello, it's me, Jessica Blumke. I am going to do a modern interpretive dance about the first book of Genesis.
Yes.
And I just think that
People
we
would
could do a
appreciate
lot
it.
of good.
Yes.
And frankly, so a lot of chaos, which is sort of my favorite thing to do.
I will say this.
Rich people reach out to me.
A nearby county where we live, DuPage County.
We are in DuPage County
I'm sorry.
at present.
I am not, but
Watch your mouth.
neighboring county.
I
for
love
me.
DuPage County.
DuPage County, for 3 years now, they've invited me to give an invocation at their meetings.
DuPage, he doesn't even know where you are. I love you. I'm a lifelong DuPage County citizen. Somebody invite me to a thing.
About 3 years ago, they had a controversy where people were trying to get them to give a non-Christian, allow a non-Christian invocation or not have them at all. And after that kind of kerfuffle happened, they said, hey, do you want to give a secular invocation a couple of years ago?
To you?
To me. And I did a couple of years ago. It was like, fine. It went fine.
Seething with
and
jealousy.
Then, to my surprise, like a year later, they said, hey, do you want to come back and do it? Sure. And I did. And it was fine. And there was, like that first time, there was some local news articles about it. Second time I went, nothing about it, which fine. It was a thing they just do.
Sure.
And I got a request about a month ago. They're like, hey, do you want to come back? It's like that time of year. So I'm like, sure. Well, that happened to be.
Give him my card.
I will work on it. So I went back this week to give the invocation earlier this week. And it was like a minute long. It was not an issue, but this happened after the Mary Miller kerfuffle that we were just talking about. So I will tell you, this is what I said early on in that invocation.
I'm not a Sikh, I'm just brown.
Yeah. I always appreciate how this board is willing to listen to people who may not fit a traditional mold because it shouldn't make a difference if an invocation is given by someone who's Muslim or Sikh or an atheist like myself. Wisdom can come from all sorts of people, and we're all better off when we can acknowledge and respect that. And then I said nicer things. So anyway.
That's cool. I didn't know you did that.
I do all sorts of things.
Yeah, you don't tell anybody about them. Like, I know
do
I'm
not.
your only friend.
I tell you nothing.
I would have gone to that. I would have come to see you speak.
It lasted 3 minutes and then I was out.
It doesn't matter. I would have come. You should invite your people into your life. Oh, do you want to do trivia next Sunday?
No.
Fuck.
Let's talk about a different story.
Okay.
You ready for this? This is one I mentioned last week and we were going to talk about it. Then I said I was going to hold it till this week, but it's disturbing. Okay. This has nothing to do with anything. This wasn't in the news. Someone brought it to my attention, but it got no media coverage. And then I started looking into this story and I'm like, holy crap, what the hell is going on here? Okay, here's the situation. Generally speaking, we have talked about this. If you confess your sins to a priest, you can rest assured those conversations are confidential. If you say, like in the confession booth at a Catholic church, you've committed a crime or you're the victim of a crime, the priest is under no legal obligation to share that with law enforcement, unlike, say, a mandated reporter where you say, I was abused, and they have to then tell someone about that.
Most adults who work with young people are mandated reporters.
Correct.
I'm a mandated reporter.
Correct. So the problem is there's obviously a major loophole in that rule. What happens if someone confesses to committing sexual abuse of a child? And we talked about this recently because in Washington state, lawmakers there just passed a law requiring priests to serve as mandated reporters, even if they learn about confession, even if they learn about the abuse solely through confession.
And they are big mad about it.
Yeah, and Catholic bishops are now suing to undo that because they care about dogmatic secrecy over the safety of kids. Okay, one of the questions that comes up every time we talk about those stories is, okay, let's say they passed that law. So what? How often is this actually going to happen?
How often are murderers confessing to you?
Right. And yeah, this is the story that is happening in Arizona that is getting no coverage. So here's what happened in Arizona.
Okay.
In 2021, a guy named Mario Rodriguez Ramirez, double last name, he was arrested in Tempe, Arizona on charges of abusing a child. He had been the pastor of a Baptist church for several years, but apparently before he was arrested, they found out about the allegations. They basically fired this guy when they heard about the allegations, and then months later, he was arrested.
Okay.
So he's now the former pastor of that church. Okay. It turns out the reason they were able to arrest this guy, because you got to have some evidence, right, to arrest him. The Tempe Police Department said one of the reasons they were able to take him into custody is because he basically confessed to everything. And the local news, which did a story when this guy was arrested in, again, 2021, here's from the local news article. During the investigation, court documents say Rodriguez Ramirez admitted his actions and said, quote, he knew it was wrong and regrets it. During a recorded conversation with a family member, the suspect said, quote, his mind was clouded and he was fighting his urges. He was fighting his urges because he knew those urges were immoral and illegal, and he regrets what he did.
Is this person praising him for ignoring his urges? Is that what I'm supposed to be getting out of this?
No, I don't know
Just
what the
an
reaction
observation.
was, but he said to someone else, like, oh, my mind was like this and I was fighting my urges. He did not know he was being recorded by this family member who's like, oh, you're telling me this. Oh, okay. And then he regrets it because he acted on it, apparently.
Well, and
so
got caught.
There were at least 2 victims. One of them that we know something about was only 9 years old.
Oh,
yeah, it was horrible. So this guy was arrested, this is from the news article, on 2 counts of sexual abuse, sexual conduct with a minor, child molestation, aggravated assault and voyeurism, and indecent exposure while at the Tempe Home Depot. Like, he took the child to the back of that store where no one was looking, like the back parking lot, I think, and that's where he did the crime.
Jesus Christ.
And this is what the police said in their report.
Fuck, that's dark.
Yeah. This guy, and the news article went on to say this guy is facing 1 charge of felony, sexual conduct with a minor because he assaulted that one.
Yeah.
The other person he touched inappropriately, but it didn't amount to that charge. Okay. So here's where we're at right now with this guy. He's currently on trial, but sometimes these trials take forever.
Yeah.
There was a snag in the case recently. And this is confusing because it doesn't sound like there's that much controversy here. Like, he's charged with this thing. He confessed to it. There was a recording of this stuff. He admitted to everything.
Is there something about the legality of the recording?
Well, here's the question. It turns out that the recorded conversation with a family member, where he basically confessed to everything, was made to his brother-in-law, who decided to record this conversation. Well, his brother-in-law happens to be a pastor.
Okay.
And those 2 guys, the brother-in-law and this guy, they led that church together. And the brother-in-law also happens to be the uncle of one of the victims.
Jesus.
So when this guy was telling his brother-in-law about all this stuff, he was trying to apologize/repent for what he did.
To his kid?
It wasn't his kid. It's like a second.
Oh, his uncle.
Yeah,
fuck.
don't do the family tree here. It's hard. But so here's what happened. It appears that in mid-2020, after the allegations surfaced, but before this guy was arrested, it was COVID. He couldn't go to this guy's house or his church. They decided to meet at a park. It's the only place they could really meet in public. And he wanted to talk to his brother-in-law, like, what the hell should I do here? And, like, how is the church going to move forward? Should I tell the congregation what happened, or should I just, like, walk away quietly?
Yeah.
This is from the article. He also expressed concern about this is from a lawsuit. He also expressed concern about the harm to the church, the congregation, the alleged victim, and the alleged victim's family. The co-pastor, the brother-in-law, acknowledged those actions, discussed the harm it caused the alleged victim, and spoke about the spiritual ramifications for Rodriguez Ramirez.
Okay.
But the dude who is the criminal here, alleged criminal, he did not know he was being recorded through all of this. He also did not know that recording was later shared with church members and another pastor who I think they were also friendly with.
Okay.
And somehow that recording landed in the hands of the police. I don't know if the brother-in-law is the one who did that or someone else did that, but that's how the police got a hold of this recording.
Okay.
And that's part of the evidence they used to arrest this guy. So here's the question that is now causing this controversy. Can that recording be used in the trial against the alleged suspect? And the state, the Tempe, Arizona police, their argument is, yeah, we can totally use this because it wasn't some formal religious confession. Yeah. Just look at everything they talked about. He wasn't like just asking for forgiveness. They were chatting about business, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do with the church now? Because I'm not going to be there anymore. Lawyers for the guy say you cannot use this tape because the only reason he was spilling his guts to the brother-in-law is because he knew he was speaking to a fellow pastor. So the specifics of their conversation should not matter because all that you should know about their conversation is he was speaking to a pastor, therefore that should be confidential.
No, it shouldn't.
So when the Superior Court judge...
Yes. No, it shouldn't. That's stupid. So that's a bad reading of any stupid law.
So initially, the Maricopa County Superior Court judge heard these arguments. She is the person that's deciding this case. She said what you just said. She's like, we can totally allow this recording into evidence because it's, quote, not reasonable to pretend this conversation was for the purpose of spiritual guidance.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I love when judges use their brains.
So in response to that, his lawyers, with, by the way, support from the right-wing group First Liberty Institute, they asked an Arizona appellate court to step in and undo that decision before the judge gets to issue any sort of verdict on this case. And now that appellate court has finally weighed in.
Oh, no.
And they, in a unanimous ruling that came back in April, the Arizona Court of Appeals said that recording cannot be admitted into evidence because the conversation was privileged. They said
fuck them.
That these
Absolutely
two men
fuck these
were
people.
talking about religious stuff, which makes it a confession.
No.
And that's it.
That's not even a tenet of Christianity. That's Catholicism. Is that your...
Oh, no. It doesn't matter. Because if you're talking to your pastor about personal things, that counts as a confession, even if it's not in the book.
No, it doesn't, because words have meaning. And confession is a specific thing. Talking to your business partner about how you molested children is not privileged.
So this is what the appellate court justices said.
People.
This is from their ruling. Rodriguez Ramirez spoke with his co-pastor about his earlier actions, said he was struggling with unwanted urges, and acknowledged concern about what he did. He also expressed concern about the harm to the church, the congregation, the alleged victim, and the alleged victim's family. The co-pastor acknowledged these actions, discussed the harm it caused the alleged victim, and spoke about the spiritual ramifications for Rodriguez Ramirez. During the discussion, Rodriguez Ramirez sought the co-pastor's help to minimize harm to the congregation. The communication also addressed matters of church management. ... For Rodriguez Ramirez, a clergy member, church management concerns reflect how he could reach harmony with himself and the other members of his church. The conversation, thus, was a confession.
Oh, go fuck yourself, Arizona. Jesus Christ. When are they going to actually give a shit about children? How are these people fucking sleeping at night, Hemant? Jesus fucking Christ. They will do anything to protect men.
So and they're saying because the co-pastor offered spiritual guidance,
go absolutely fuck
we're
yourself.
Supposed to assume that the suspect saw this as a confession worthy of confidentiality.
But it doesn't matter because Christianity does not have that tenet in it, Hemant. Hemant. Rhymes. Oh, I'm mad.
So, and what about the fact that they met at a park and not a church or a confession booth? The court said, well, it was during the pandemic, so they didn't have that option, so that doesn't matter.
Absolutely fucking kill yourself, judges.
So the end result is that the recording,
fucking monsters.
The transcript of the recording, and the testimony from the brother-in-law about what they discussed will not be allowed in the criminal trial.
Good job, Arizona. You're fucking nailing it as usual.
And because the suspect, has pleaded not guilty, that kind of limits the tools law enforcement can use to send this guy to prison. So here's what happens now.
Oh my God.
The case goes back to that Superior Court judge. And what is she supposed to do now? Because I don't know what evidence Tempe police have. Maybe they have other evidence that is independent from this recording that they can use to nab this guy. But it's also possible that this pastor gets little or no punishment, all because a lot of the evidence used against him was mixed in with religion during a conversation with his business partner.
These people are monsters. These people hold the privilege of being the majority religion in such high esteem that they're willing to literally sacrifice children at its altar.
Yeah. So this is also, I mean, this is another reason
How do
the
these
clergy
people fucking
penitent
sleep
privilege.
at night?
This is another reason that loophole is so damning, and why every state should make sure predators don't get to use it as a loophole. And again, when we talked about this in Washington State, we're talking about a very formal type of confession, and they are suing to undo that. And again, the conversation is, does that really happen? Does anyone actually confess to a priest about a crime that they did? And there are some vile examples in like Australia of someone doing it many times over. Here's an example of it happening
confessing to many
right
other
now.
priests.
Yeah, and here's an example of it happening in real time right now. And it's that loophole that is being used to possibly get this guy off the hook.
Special secrets are more important than the well-being of children in Arizona. Everybody take a note.
Yeah. And again, this story has not been covered because there's no decision on this yet, and it hasn't been talked about in the context of that loophole.
I'm so mad.
Yeah,
and I'm so sweady.
When that was brought to my attention, I saw that. I'm like, I don't remember hearing about this story. This is I was brought to awareness of this story by Diane Post, who is a lawyer who works with Secular Arizona. So she keeps tabs on some of this stuff.
Thank you,
and
Diane.
she had posted about how that's a problem. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I don't remember this story. And when I looked through it, I'm like, oh my God, why have I not heard about this story? And there you go.
I'm devastated.
Right?
That was a terrible story.
That was dark.
That sucked.
Let's talk about normal sucky stuff and not that.
I don't want to, I don't think.
Okay, so there is a U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. So USC IRF. And it's a good group. They're actually fighting on behalf of the government, on behalf of religious freedom around the world.
Because there are places in the world where Christians are being persecuted.
Yes, and other religions are being persecuted as well.
Yes.
And the task of this particular group is to say, you know, the U.S. foreign policy with our State Department has been like, we want to champion, I mean, historically, we want to champion democracy around the world. And so when our ambassadors or our Secretary of State goes out to other countries, they can say, yeah, or they give grant money to different groups around the world. They're doing it with the mission of saying, here's a group that is working to spread democracy, help with religious freedom in these other parts of the world. And as a government, we think that's a good thing to do, even if you don't like the specifics of this case or that case. We talked about a controversy last year. The State Department had given a $500,000 grant to an atheist group that helped persecuted atheists in like Southeast Asia or South Asia. I can't remember which part specifically. And then Republicans made a big deal about it because they were like, you're funding atheism overseas. It's like, no, it's part of the broader context of spreading democracy and religious freedom.
Yeah.
So anyway, part of this mission, the State Department is the USC IRF, International Religious Freedom. And basically the way that group works is the members to the group are appointed by both major parties. So like the president gets to appoint some people to the mix. The leader of the opposing party, whoever that is, gets to appoint some names. The Speaker of the House gets to appoint some people. So like it's a bipartisan thing. But again, their main purpose is we weigh in on religious freedom around the world and make policy recommendations to sitting lawmakers. So like it's not a platform.
It's like a research group.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's pretty boring in the best possible sense.
Yeah.
Among the things they do, they release an annual report saying these parts of the world are, quote, countries of particular concern, which is their way of saying, holy shit, this country is really bad for religious freedom.
And is the United States on that list yet?
Slowly working our way there. They also suggest countries that the State Department should watch out for because they're heading in that direction. So I looked at their 2025 report, which came out a couple months ago, I think. Like, what are the countries of particular concern? No surprise here. You have like Afghanistan, Burma, China, Cuba, Eritrea, India, Iran, Nicaragua, Nigeria, North Korea, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Vietnam. Those are like the red flag. These are places where if you're not in the majority religion, it's really bad.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're a State Department person who takes this stuff seriously and you're trying to do any sort of negotiation with those countries, you use this as leverage, saying like, hey, well, we're the United States.
Yeah.
You want to get something from us? We need to see what you're going to do for religious freedom, right? That's the reason they put out reports like this. And again, those recommendations may or may not influence how the State Department interacts with leaders of those nations. So it's not symbolic. This is a way to spread the genuinely good goals of religious freedom around the world. That means you want people on that committee who are known for defending religious freedom for everybody, not just promoting their own views. So the USCIRF, they condemn anti-Semitism, yes, but also anti-Muslim bias. Like, that's a good thing that they are fighting that. They're fighting to say this is wrong and you shouldn't allow this.
The way
you know what
you're
I mean?
teeing this up makes me feel like some people do not agree with their mission.
By the way, last year, the group recommended our country sign on to a statement condemning persecution of atheist and non-practicing individuals, which, by the way, we
That's
did.
us.
The United States signed that agreement. So occasionally, extremists do get added to the mix, even though it's a bipartisan group. So in 2018, Mitch McConnell, the leader of the opposition, I'm sorry, not the opposition, but the leader of the president's party, he got to make recommendations to this group. He nominated Christian hate group leader Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council.
Tony Perkins?
Yeah. Really bad dude. If you Google Tony Perkins and Confederate flag, you'll see a picture. At the time, his nomination was condemned by several groups. This is what one article said. Tony Perkins is the most recognizable anti-LGBTQ activist in America. He has espoused the most extreme views of LGBTQ people and other vulnerable communities. The idea that Perkins would be making policy recommendations to an administration, this is Trump administration the first time around, that is already anti-LGBTQ is dangerous and puts LGBTQ people directly in harm's way. Another person said Perkins' idea of religious freedom is having the freedom to discriminate against entire groups of people he doesn't like. His well-documented bigotry has no place in any government entity. But he got nominated by Mitch McConnell. He was placed on the committee. And the only solace there is, well, he's one voice out of 9 voices. Kind of like the Supreme Court, like Clarence Thomas is a problem, but if he was just the only dude who's a problem, you could kind of look the other way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the case with the Supreme Court, but it was the case with the USCIRF.
Not as many pictures of him with Confederate flags as you'd think.
I know, just the one, and it's from a while back. But anyway, that's the one.
Yeah.
So in 2019, a year after he was appointed there, guess what? Tony Perkins became the chair of the organization. And that move was further criticized by people who actually fight for religious freedom. Rabbi Jack Moline, who headed up a group called the Interfaith Alliance at the time, said Perkins has no place on a commission designed to protect religious freedom at home or abroad. He said, how can Perkins be trusted to stand against religious persecution at a time when people in this country and around the world are being killed because of their faith, while still working for an organization that devalues the realities of persecution by continually asserting that evangelical Christians are, quote, under attack in this country? Congress ought to reverse Perkins' appointment, he said. So I share that sentiment. Now, here's the thing about Perkins heading up this group and being on that committee.
Oh my God. Sorry, just really quick. I'm on Southern Poverty Law Center, and there's 10 things I need to know about Tony Perkins. Number one is, while managing the 1996 U.S. Senate campaign of then Representative Woody Jenkins in Louisiana, Perkins signed off on an $82,000 check to buy robocalls from a company run by former Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard David Duke.
Yep.
So
that's Perkins for you.
That's just number one that they need me to know about him.
So here's what's amazing. And I asked a reporter friend who I know who covers this stuff. I'm like, I remember this happening, and I remember him being made chair of this organization.
This is 2020, you said?
This is 2018. He was nominated to the group. 2019, he was elected to be their chair for a year. But I'm like, I don't remember hearing any stories about him leading this group and them doing anything weird or shady.
Did he keep a lid on it for the first time in his life?
That's the thing. I'm like, did he actually do anything that is Tony Perkins-ish? Or did the group just continue
did he do
as
anything
usual?
good?
Right. Because as far as I could tell, they just continued doing their boring but important stuff.
Yeah.
And according to that reporter, he's like, I don't recall hearing anything about that group doing anything weird. Right, basically.
Okay.
So when he was chair, and in the years since he's been on the board, because even when he wasn't chair, he was chair for a year in 2019. 2020, he was the vice chair for a year. And I think he spent the next year or two as just on the committee.
Okay.
And he only recently departed the committee. But in all that time, I never heard any stories about them doing anything weird.
Okay.
So, in fact, the USCIRF called for the immediate release of Saudi blogger Raif Badawi, who was imprisoned for alleged apostasy in that country. He was like a cause celebre in the atheist world. Perkins, I will say, Perkins was not mentioned in that press release that they put out saying this guy needs to be released immediately. He was
Perkins
not
wasn't mentioned in it?
like usually if you're going to say, hey, the USCIRF says Saudi Arabia, you need to let this guy go. You would have a quotation from the leader of the group.
Sure.
They didn't quote him. They quoted the vice chair saying that. I don't know why his name wasn't in that press release. Like, did he not care? Or like, why? What's the deal here? But I don't want to be conspiratorial about it. Okay. But they still released it. So that's good, that statement.
Yeah.
So anyway, this guy stayed on the USCIRF until 2022. Like, that's it.
So
Was it a non-issue? It seems like it was a non-issue that Tony Perkins was on this group. To my surprise.
is that the end of the story?
No.
Oh.
As far as I can tell, like, there's actually been pretty low drama about any members of the group. The only one I could actually find, besides Perkins, of people being mad about a member of that group, is that in 2021, a Democrat, I don't know if it was Joe Biden or Chuck Schumer, they nominated Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, who is, I don't know where she's a rabbi, but somewhere, but she's a lesbian. And Southern Baptist leader Albert Mohler, like, flipped out about that.
Oh, he was afraid he was going to catch it.
Yeah. But other than that, like, one dude in his basement making a law, like, how dare they do that? That's kind of been it in terms of drama. So here's where it gets weird. Last year, Mike Johnson got to nominate somebody to this committee, and he nominated Vicky Hartzler as his nominee. She's a former congresswoman. She represented a Missouri district from 2011 to 2023.
Okay.
When she was in Congress for those, like, 6 terms,
I'm very nervous.
she was one of the most anti-gay lawmakers to ever serve in Congress. She became famous for opposing, like, the reason she was even picked to run for Congress, because she made a name for herself fighting marriage equality in Missouri long before Obergefell.
So brave.
She fought to pass a constitutional amendment in Missouri banning same-sex marriage.
Onward, Christian soldier.
Yeah. She said at the time, gay marriage is like polygamy and incest. She said, she said gay couples don't deserve equal rights, just as it's not the right of a 3-year-old to drive a car.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Incest?
Oh, yeah.
How could that possibly
all
have
sins.
anything to... Oh, just as a sin, I see.
Everything is bad.
But I thought sins were... you know what? You keep talking.
Yeah, sure. So she also said, gay couples don't deserve equal rights, just as 3-year-olds don't get the right to drive a car.
That is sort of the craziest thing I've ever heard a person say. First of all, my nephew is a very good driver.
This takes us back a while, but this is what she said during a speech like a couple decades ago, talking about marriage equality. If you let everybody with that standard, for instance, if you just care about somebody, have a committed relationship, saying, if that's all that matters to you, that they're committed to each other, why not allow 1 man and 2 women or 3 women to marry? There are a lot of people in this country that support polygamy. Why not? If they're committed to each other, why should you care? Why not allow group marriage? Yeah. There are people out there who want that. I think it's called polyamory.
Oh, she did her research.
Well, is that the best policy? Why not allow an uncle to marry his niece?
Oh, see, now we kind of stepped out of the reality of the world.
Why not allow a 50-year-old man to marry a 12-year-old girl if they love each other and they are committed, ...
So is she saying that being gay is the same thing as being a toddler?
Basically. Like, the government, she's basically saying, gets to set parameters over what's allowed and what's not allowed. And in her mind, gay marriage, not allowed.
Sure.
By the way, after that quote was mentioned in a bunch of articles, she's like, you misconstrued
of course
what I
did.
said. I did not.
I think gay people should all die. You're confused.
She said, I misspoke. I didn't mean a 3-year-old driving a car. I meant 13-year-old driving a car. So what she meant to say was, it's not the right of a 13-year-old to be able to drive a car. We're allowed to say you're not allowed to do that, and we're allowed to say gay people can't get married.
Is that the thing that she thought we didn't like?
Yes.
I don't think she quite understands concerns.
All of that is before she was in Congress. Once she was in Congress, the bigotry continued. So like when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, allowing openly gay soldiers to serve in the military, Hartzler said gay soldiers should have to sleep separately from straight ones. Like, you need to confine them to a different room.
I love that. Oh, they get their own little suite.
Yeah. More than a decade.
Would you rather sleep in the room with all the gay soldiers or the room with all the straight soldiers? Tell me right now.
The party room. Yeah. So
it's going to be tastefully decorated. It's going to be tidy.
Damn right. More than a decade later, they were debating. Do you remember after after like Roe v. Wade was overturned, there was concern they're going to undo Obergefell.
Yep.
We need to defend same-sex marriage at a national level. So they wanted to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined marriages between a man and a woman.
I thought they did that in 2015.
Yeah, it was years ago.
Oh, okay.
So when that debate was going on, and even Republicans are like, this is a lost cause, just repeal it, it's fine. She was on the floor of the House breaking into tears about how bad things would be. It was so bad that her own nephew, Andrew Hartzler, made national headlines because he called this out. He made a video. I don't know if it was on TikTok or YouTube, but he basically said his aunt is crying because gay people like me can get married. And he said, quote,
I remember this.
He said, so despite coming out to my aunt this past February, I guess she's still just as much as a homophobe. It's more like you want the power to force your religious beliefs onto everyone else. And because you don't have that power, you feel like you're being silenced, but you're not. You're just going to have to learn to coexist with all of us. And I'm sure it's not that hard. That was her nephew saying that.
Oh, boy, what a good man.
By the way, that's not the only example. I want to play for you a thing here because in 2011, after the Air Force Academy, they had spent like $3.5 million to build a chapel on campus to accommodate pretty much all different religions, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and some smaller faiths. So the Air Force Academy had just spent $3.5 million doing that. They said this is necessary. We want to make sure people can practice their faith. Well, they also dedicated, I think they spent like $80,000 creating a space for what they called earth-based religions to worship, because some people don't use indoor chapels or things. So for pagans and witches and other religions who needed a place outside, the Air Force Academy created a space, $80,000 outside, so that those people, granted a minority, but they could use it too. And
earth-based religion?
That's what it said in the articles.
I love that.
But this is what Vicky Hartzler said in an interview because she was so mad about this. And guess who she's speaking to coincidentally in this interview?
Anderson Cooper.
Tony Perkins.
Oh, fuck me.
So here's that interview.
You see this as a part of a growing trend that we see that there is really kind of a marginalization of Christianity and almost a promotion of other forms of, I would have to say, fringe religions.
I agree. I think so. And at the Air Force Academy recently, they weren't going to allow the Operation Christmas Child boxes there, too. And so I'm not sure what is going on there. But Christianity is the main religion in our country. And as a policy for the Department of Defense, I mean, we need to defend the practice of religion, but we do not have to obligate taxpayer funds to facilitate it or accommodate it or pay for it.
Oh, so they do get it.
And what we've seen happen is there has been this effort to, as I mentioned a minute ago, to marginalize Christianity while promoting other religions, as if the government has to be the equalizer. And I want to ask you about that. I mean, as a congresswoman, as one who understands the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, is it the government's role to try to put all religions on the same plane?
No, it's not their role at all. I mean, their role is to facilitate basic policy for our country and to not to try to lift up one religion or over the other. They should be defending the basic rights that we have, the freedom of religion here, and certainly not facilitating or accommodating fringe religions. I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy, she says. It's crazy to accommodate. Are you all right there? All right. By the way, I know the funniest thing about that is Tony Perkins saying, as a congresswoman, as one who understands the Constitution, she's the dumbest member of Congress at the time.
I'm sorry.
Why do you think because she's in Congress she knows anything? But
these two Christians who think that it's a Christian nation are like, it's not the government's job to support religion. Like,
unless it's their religion, in which case it's not about religion, it's about our history. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. How can you be this stupid? How can you say those words and not be like, wait, this is the opposite of what I actually think? Sorry.
The two things the two things Hartzler said in there that I want to call out. One, Christianity is the main religion in our country, which is, what does that mean? Yeah, it's the most popular religion in the country, but the government's job is not to promote it. But she says we don't have to obligate taxpayer funds to facilitate it or accommodate it or pay for it. I want to repeat, they had just spent, the Air Force Academy, $3.5 million to build a Christian chapel that other major religions would also use. And then she was mad about the $80,000 they were spending for a space outside for the groups that wanted to use that as well. And then she also said, it's crazy we're accommodating fringe religions. So that's
These
her.
people have no bones in their body. They have no spine.
Nope.
They stand for fucking nothing.
None.
These people are the worst kind of people.
Now, since leaving Congress,
Wrapping themselves in religion and then being like, a fringe thing, which, paganism, this fringe thing, which, by the way, we stole every single fucking ritual we have from.
don't ask us about
boy.
solstice. Yes. So
This
since
dumb
leaving
dumb.
Congress, she's still been insane. Just last year, she blasted schools that teach mindfulness and yoga because she said they are based in Buddhism and Hinduism. And if schools really want to help students who have mental health issues, they don't need meditation. What
They
do they
need
need?
prayer.
They need Jesus. Yes. So this is Vicky Hartzler for you. She's a conservative zealot who sees everything as Christian persecution and cannot conceive of a country where other religions are treated with the same respect that hers gets. And she was nominated by... who did I say again?
I don't know.
She was nominated by Mike Johnson last year to be part of the USCIRF. And
Mike
That's why
Johnson,
we're
that was a fucking terrible choice, dum-dum.
yep. And now, this week, she just got elected to be the chair of the USCIRF.
Perfect.
Yep. They just made the announcement. They said the USCIRF today elected Vicky Hartzler as its chair for 2025-2026. And this is the statement. Either she said it or
my
their staff said it on her
God.
behalf. USCIRF is a vital part of the United States foreign policy efforts to promote religious freedom. This human right is enshrined in both our own Constitution and in international law. But even more fundamentally, it is etched in the heart of every person. ... Like, it is hard to imagine a worse spokesperson for the cause of religious freedom around the world than a Christian zealot who has spent her career undermining religious freedom in the United States.
Yeah, we should not lose her on the world.
Her history is whenever other people's beliefs have come into conflict with her own faith, and by conflict I mean they want the same thing you do. No. She has used her power as a lawmaker to shut down those other religions.
Ozarks, you need to come get your girl.
Yeah.
She cannot be set loose on the world like this.
This is the amazing thing. Her long-form bio on the website for the USCIRF, it focuses on like why is she on this board, right? It focuses on her support for Christians abroad and not religious freedom in general. She's just saying, I have fought for Christians who are persecuted in countries where they are legitimately persecuted, and that's fine. But also it's like, there's a lot of diversity on your resume here.
Yeah.
The one time she mentioned another religion in that bio that is not Christianity, she's talking about Uyghurs, which is a group that's mostly Muslim in China. But even when she says, I fought on behalf of persecuted Uyghurs, she said, like, why was she helping them? Because China was coming after them and forcing them to have abortions. And she's like, well, we can't have that happen. So even in that context, she was really just doing it to pursue her own religious beliefs and not because she gave a shit about whatever it is they believe.
Oh, these fucking people.
So the point is, last year she was one voice in a larger group, and maybe like Tony Perkins, I did not hear much about her positions on anything within the context of that group. I don't know what happens now. And I asked around and no one really said, this is going to be good or bad. Like maybe because they just hope the group continues doing whatever it is they do.
Sure.
The one comment I did get, like I kind of hope she just pulls a Tony Perkins. It's like, yeah, you're an extremist, but there are other people in the group. They seem mostly decent. So maybe
Keep 'em on guardrails.
yeah, maybe you'll just do your job here and keep your crazy for your personal life. Nick Fish, the president of American Atheists, he sent me this statement that her record shows an alarming lack of commitment to religious pluralism and secular democracy. This is what he said that I found really interesting. Hartzler's appointment as chair continues a long tradition of Christian nationalists being elevated to positions of power within our government and using that privileged position to protect only their own freedom to discriminate against LGBTQ plus people.
That's right.
In the 26-year history of USCIRF, there has never been an atheist, humanist, or non-religious member of the commission ignoring more than a quarter of Americans and nearly 2 billion people worldwide. The American people deserve better.
Wow.
For what it's worth, there are currently 7 commissioners on that board with 2 open slots. Those slots, in theory, if the tradition continues, would be filled by the current president, which I don't know why he hasn't done it yet. I also don't know why he hasn't kicked off the 3 Democratic appointments who are on that group.
I bet it's just not in his.
I hope that's
line
it.
of
He's just not
vision.
thinking about them. Like, it shouldn't really matter given the bipartisan nature of the group, but there's no aspect of government Republicans will not turn into a culture war battle if they can.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's something to keep an eye on that Hartzler is the chair of this group. But again, I don't know if that means it's going to be a good or bad thing.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure it's not going to be a good thing.
Right.
So I think we can just put that aside. We're just not sure if it's going to be a bad thing yet.
So I'm going to jump to a different story.
Oh my God. I'm so stressed
Dude.
out.
Sorry, we got a lot. Here's a story about another Christian hate preacher. His name is Dylan Oz, A-W-E-S. I've talked about him vaguely before. You know the new independent fundamentalist Baptist preachers, those they run churches out of strip malls. Steven Anderson is kind of their ringleader.
Sure.
They kind of just say hateful things to their congregations, which are relatively small. But they post everything online. And before YouTube banned them, they were getting a lot of traction there. And they knew full well they were playing to an audience of zealots and extremists online, not really to the people in the room.
Right.
And so, their videos are frequent and they always have the good microphones. You know what I mean? They take video quality very seriously because they know what they're doing on that front, even though they're running a small little tiny church in the middle of random cities.
That's really weird.
So Dylan Oz was in the news this week. He is one of these several new IFB preachers. And I'll tell you why he's in the news in just a second, but I just need to give you some context as to who this dude is.
Okay.
All right. Again, who are the new IFB preachers? They have celebrated the deaths of LGBTQ people.
Nice.
They have repeatedly called on the government to execute gay people, sometimes with the firing squad. Spread Holocaust denialism. They promote, obviously, misogyny. Some have said women should not be judges. They should not be allowed to vote. They believe abortion doctors should be killed.
Cool.
That's what all of these dudes kind of say in general terms.
They must have a fun life.
Right? There you go.
What a cool way to live the life.
I was tracking this group for such a long time and watched way too many of their sermons.
Yeah, your brain has to be Swiss cheese by now.
Oh, completely. Steven Anderson was banned from 34 countries, stepping foot in 34 countries because
I
of the
remember
hateful
that
rhetoric. I wanted to play some clips of Dylan Oz speaking for you, but also I don't want to get banned from whatever we post this podcast on, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to play them for
I
you.
also don't want to hear a stupid voice.
Right? So let me just tell you some of the things he has said. He did call for execution of gay people by the government. This is his fantasy world that he wants to live in. He also said they should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. That is what God teaches. That's what the Bible says. Unquote.
I don't remember that verse.
He claims that all homosexuals, to use this phrase, are pedophiles.
Oh.
And that if they're not,
Oh.
because someone might say, well, I know someone who is gay and they have not done this yet. And then he said, well, it's because, quote, they have not had the opportunity yet.
If you tell me that this man is going to jail for assaulting children, I'm going to flip this table over.
Okay. Hold that thought.
Okay.
He also spouted all of this stuff in one sermon once because one of his buddies, new IFB preacher, got evicted from a strip mall church due to all the hate speech, and he was so mad about it. And so he said he longed for the days when gay people were stoned, hanged, executed by a firing squad. He really loves firing squads. He also said gay people were full of disease and predators.
Disease and predator?
Just two separate things. And then he said he heard that a popular Christian pastor, evangelical pastor, was going to let a married gay couple speak at his conference.
And he firebombed the church.
He was so mad, he said, he's using the F slur against gay people. Now there's Fs behind the pulpit. These Fs should get a bullet in their brain. They should get the death penalty, not be preaching behind the pulpit.
Does he use the 2-syllable F slur or the 1-syllable? Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think people still said that.
Oh, the new IFB preachers love it.
They also like the R slur. That's a really weird thing to be coming back. What the fuck is that all about?
That's just right-wing podcasters right there.
What the fuck is that, by the way?
Oh, it's a whole thing.
Why? What is wrong with these people?
Weird thing is J.D. Vance is part of that group and still does the rounds on right-wing podcasts and still says all the crazy shit, but he's just overshadowed by Trump saying dumber things, so it doesn't get the attention it needs. Anyway.
I was just listening to my brother and me when the new pope came in, and they described him as the revenge pope to come after J.D. Vance because he killed the last pope.
I would enjoy that. Unfortunately, he will disappoint you. Just to be clear, I've seen way too many good headlines about the pope, and it's like, none of you know what this guy believes, do you?
No, we don't. But I'm just hoping that he's a super secret assassin.
He's hiding the weapons in the robe. Dylan Oz also, this won't surprise you, he does not like it when women preach. He said, quote, "You might as well just be spitting in the face of God. It is better not to be in church than to be listening to a woman preaching the word of God. That is wicked."
Wicked.
Yes. And by the way, I should say,
no one
last year, I interviewed 2 of these new IFB preachers in person.
Yeah, I still don't know why you did that.
I know. But the whole movement, I will say, kind of fell apart late last year, and it's because Steven Anderson, the ringleader, his kids, as we talked about, began speaking out against him and the abuse they suffered. And
didn't one of the teenagers run away and was
4 of them have now spoken out against their own father.
One kid had to be brought to Carolina, one of the Carolinas or something like that to get away from this dude.
Yep. So after
but
that
women
happened,
are wicked.
After that happened, these guys were some of them started distancing themselves from Anderson, and they were like, well, I'll just do my own thing. They've been less impactful, even in their small, weird right-wing niche.
Is it just that they're no longer a collective as much? They're each their own individual dum-dums?
But they all kind of still preach occasionally at each other's churches because they're still part of the same hate group.
It's a lecture circuit.
Steven Anderson preached at Dylan Oz Church recently.
Great.
So it's they're still
it's good
friends.
stuff.
But anyway, okay, that's the background of who this guy is. Why is he in the news now? It's not because of anything criminal or anything that involves that. It's because last year he got hired to work for Oklahoma City in the city's government as a tech guy. Yes, there you go. He works in cybersecurity now for the city of Oklahoma, for Oklahoma City. So according to the Oklahoman, the newspaper, records show he was hired by the city of Oklahoma City in August of 2024 as a ground maintenance employee, and then he was promoted this past March to be an application support technician. Okay. So he basically works in cybersecurity. This guy went from doing all the stuff I just told you about to getting hired to work in a regular-ass job for the city government.
Okay.
And people just connected the dots to who their guy is in the IT department.
This is Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was Steven Anderson. I'm like,
no.
They could be forgiven for not realizing Steven Anderson was that Steven Anderson.
Right. No, they just found, so this guy makes a regular salary and just works in IT. And the Oklahoman noted there haven't been any incidents at work suggesting his religion ever really comes out in the office. And his secular colleagues, his colleagues in the workplace are like, oh, Dylan, he's polite and friendly. But the newspaper spoke to some of the LGBTQ people who work in the city. Ew. And when they found out, that's what he said?
Oh, this man's calling for my personal death? Cool.
Here's from the Oklahoman. It's terrifying, said one of 2 LGBTQ plus coworkers interviewed by the Oklahoman. I didn't expect that to come out of his mouth. While watching those videos, I felt physically ill.
Yeah.
Another employee. He's very bright and prompt. he's polite to everyone. And then when you see the videos, it's like the earth shifts. It's not this very nice person you know at work.
Oh my God.
Which is like,
this
oh,
is like
honey.
the people who worked with BTK.
Yeah. It's like, wait, that guy has a secret life?
Wait, Ted Bundy? He worked
Right.
on the suicide hotline.
So my first question was like, I get why the colleagues may not know that this dude has another side hustle that is really disturbing. How come the city didn't know when they hired him?
Okay.
Like, did they not search for any of this online? And here's an answer for this, and then you could say exactly what you're going to say.
Oh, boy.
This is from the Oklahoman. That history, his history, according to several sources, was unknown locally when Oz was first hired to mow lawns at Oklahoma City parks. The employees say they have raised their concerns with their bosses and other city officials and were told they would keep an eye on his activities at work. The city's spokesperson said human resources policy prohibits hiring managers from using search engines to vet a job applicant. She said the city does not have the staffing to add online searches for job applications. She said the city, which has a workforce of 5,000, employs 4 people in human resources who screened 27,000 applications in 2024. Yeah. So part of me is like, okay, so they literally did not Google this guy, not because... Maybe because they just don't have the time to Google everybody and they just say, you run the background check, like, has this guy ever been in jail?
Yeah.
Do we have any arrest records for him? And with Dylan Oz, the answer is no. So then would they Google him? And the answer is no, they actually have a policy not to, which actually makes some sense.
Yeah.
Because you don't want some stupid thing you said online years ago to affect your job placement. And if you can do the job you're being hired for, and to be clear, this guy got hired to mow lawns. It's like, can you do the job? I guess you can. So sure, we'll hire you. And I guess he's like, well, I have some computer skills.
Right.
They're like, well, do you? I mean, if you can, then okay, we'll move you to the IT department. So I kind of get how this happens with no one finding out.
Yeah, I'm also kind of loath to... I mean, obviously this guy's a monster.
Right.
But people would say the same thing about me. You know,
Right.
like we're atheist podcasters. I have a regular job. If that came, there are people I'm sure who would be angry. Maybe not now, maybe 10 years ago. But like I've been working with a friendly atheist for 15 years or whatever. Like...
Should this come back in a job
I was
interview?
concerned.
Right.
I was concerned that like applying for jobs and this was my one professional writing job and it worried me.
And if they Google you, it'll come up and
It'll
stuff
come
like
up.
that. Right. And so here's the thing. For what it's worth, the reporters at the Oklahoman tried to interview Dylan Oz about this.
Oh.
And he said to them in a statement, I will not be doing an interview as I don't want my words to be misconstrued as the beliefs of my employer, which is weirdly normal for him to say.
Yeah, somebody's giving him good advice and I don't like it.
Right.
Who is this person?
I will say, I also reached out to him and I'm like, hey, Dylan.
Hey, it's me, Hammett.
It's me. I do have some questions. I mean, the questions I wanted to ask him are like, all right, I get what you're doing. I get that you probably want a regular ass salary, so you don't want your job jeopardized. But also, you work now with gay people, and I am wondering how you feel about that and if that is an issue for you.
Are you going to shoot them in the back of the head like you always talk about?
And to be clear, every time I've listened to those preachers say that stuff, they always add the little caveat. We're not saying you should do this. We're not saying we should do this. We're saying in a righteous, godly world, the government would do this.
Yeah,
But
that's definitely
doesn't
the world
really
that
make it all better?
I would want. These are the people who read Handmaid's Tale and were like, great ideas.
And it's a weird
This is a template for my ideal world.
It is a weird place to be in because this is the issue, and you're bringing it up as well. If this guy does his job and leaves his hateful beliefs at home, he really can't get fired simply for what he thinks and says in his spare time. Because if that were allowed, a hell of a lot of people would be out of their jobs.
Truly.
And there also have not been any actual acts of violence linked to this guy or his church or anyone in it. In fact, if you go to his website, and you should not, it says Anchor Baptist Church vehemently condemns all individual acts of violence and vigilante justice. Like he has his little disclaimer, don't blame me for any shit. I will say a few years ago, there was a man who attended a different new IFB church who was charged with a hate crime for things he said on social media.
Really?
And just this past April, those charges were dismissed. But
I wonder why.
That's the only incident I have found that connected someone who was very clearly saying some disturbing things right before a pride parade. That's the only time I've seen a link to a church. And even when I talked to the pastor of that church, he's like, I don't really know who this guy is, even if he says he attended my church. And the dude in question had a picture on Facebook of the new IFB pastor baptizing him.
Oh.
And I believe those things are not in conflict. I think the guy's
I
like,
agree.
he's just in my church and I baptized him.
How many people has he baptized?
Right. So again, at the same time though, if one of your colleagues at work spent his free time openly calling for your murder in a righteous world, even indirectly, I don't know, wouldn't that cross a line even if it was done in the context of a sermon? That's not a legal question. That's just me thinking like...
It's just a moral...
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
So right now, this guy still has a job in cybersecurity, which means theoretically he does have access to private information about LGBTQ people in Oklahoma City. And I don't know that I like that.
I mean,
but
is the best outcome of this that he works with queer people and then
maybe realizes something?
that they're just regular humans?
You're assuming he's going to come to a realization until that happens.
I know, but
right?
I'm very, very, very uncomfortable with the intellectual spot I'm in right now because I do not want to say it's totally cool for this man who hates your existence and thinks you should be dead to share a cubicle with you. That's not okay. But on the other side, I don't know.
By the way, just last week, Dylan Oz preached a sermon titled Real Christians Hate Pride Month.
So
Which
brave.
again, I know. He hasn't distanced himself from Steven Anderson either. Anderson preached at Dylan Oz Church in January, as far as I could tell.
Oh.
So it's recent.
I just remembered I had an interview from Sears canceled because of my fuck you Donald Trump tweet or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad. Sears has really thrived since then.
You got your revenge.
I sure did.
So anyway, this guy, when he's off the clock, he's a monster. Apparently when he's on the clock, he does the work. And I don't know how to feel about that. I don't work with him, but...
at the barn I work at, there are parents of kids with severe disabilities who are Trump supporters. And I cannot square that. I cannot make that work in my head. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to think. I don't understand how these people... I know cognitive dissonance is a thing, but this is insane.
It really is.
It's... Oh, boy.
We're jumping to another story because I won't get to talk about this with you next week because I'll be gone.
Oh, yeah.
So we're doing this now. There is a coalition of church-state separation groups. They just sued an Illinois county.
Which one?
Jefferson County.
Oh, that's
in
not far.
central-ish Illinois. Because that county installed a massive Ten Commandments monument at the local courthouse. And I want to tell you some of the details about this story because I was just like, oh, the county installed the Ten Commandments monument. I've heard that story before. Sure. And then when you get into the details, it's kind of wild what exactly they did.
Oh, this is like central Nowheresville, Illinois.
Yeah, it's a relatively rural area. So here's what happened. Last August, the Jefferson County Courthouse, they installed this monument right inside the building. It was 6 feet tall, mostly granite.
6 feet tall?
Yeah. At its base, there's a biblical quotation that says, "When justice is done, it is a joy to the righteous, but terror to the evildoers."
Yikes, but dikes.
Right. And by the way, this is not the same Ten Commandments monument you might see in the news when it comes to schools or outside Congress, outside legislatures. There's a certain look.
Pillar.
Yeah.
The two
there's a
tablets.
certain look to those. This is a differently designed Ten Commandments monument.
Do you have it up?
I do. Okay. But they had not only do they have the Ten Commandments, they have the quotation at the bottom of the base, like a random Bible quotation along the base. Yeah. So anyway, a lot of glaring problems with the monument. For example, why reference a Bible chapter that, by the way, says just a few verses later,
oh no,
better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife. I don't know why that's the chapter. Don't know why that's the chapter you would use, but all right. Yep.
Oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. That's in the Bible?
Yeah, let me tell you this. I saw where are they quoting that Bible verse from? Oh, it's Proverbs 21:15. Let me go to Proverbs 21 because my favorite game is what other shit is around that verse. And when I was looking around it, I'm like, normal stuff. Oh,
nagging
look at that.
Wife.
Nagging wife.
Sorry, what and nagging? Ornery?
Better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife.
And nagging wife.
That's a direct rule from
I'm sorry,
God.
did Al Bundy write this? Boom,
Yes.
roasted.
There you go. By the way, they also used, when we talk about Ten Commandments monuments or plaques or posters in schools, they always use the KJV version, which has a specific wording to it all. This one uses a very simplified form of the list. For example, there's the whole section, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife or your cattle or the maidservants and all that stuff. Yeah. This one just says, thou shalt not covet. It's like, okay, but why are you using a very edited form? I don't get that. Also, the spacing on the monument is just weird. There's giant gaps between 8 and 9 and 4 and 5, and they're doing it because they're trying to line it up horizontally, but it looks like shit. It looks weird. Anyway.
I am telling you, fucking Republicans, they'll never do anything right because nobody who's good at copy editing or design will ever work for you.
So again, not the point, I know. But why are you putting this up at all? It's not like this monument
went up. It's an affront to mine eyes.
It's not like this went up decades ago and people just noticed it now. It was brand new as of August. Completely unnecessary, totally illegal. You cannot have a standalone Christian monument on government property, much less one promoting a particular version of the religion. And just to be clear, where is that coming from? There was a
Constitution?
No. The Constitution loves Jesus. There was a Supreme Court case about 50 years ago, Stone v. Graham, that basically said you cannot put up 10 Commandment monuments on public property. The Supreme Court ruled, I think 2005, that, you definitely cannot put up a standalone monument outside a courthouse in Kentucky. But in Texas, if you want to put it outside, but you put up other displays, we'll let that one slide. But this is a standalone monument, so what the hell are you doing?
And it's inside. I don't know why that's so egregious to me.
Right? So the situation is pretty much the exact same scenario that the Supreme Court already said was illegal. Granted, 2005, different Supreme Court, but there you go.
But in theory, precedent is something that's important to the courts.
In theory. So speaking with the local newspaper, Jefferson County's sheriff, Jeff Bullard, here's how he explained it. He said he's allowed to put up this monument because of what the Supreme Court ruled in Kennedy v. Bremerton.
No, that's not going to get you there, buddy.
That's the case about the showboating high school football coach
absolutely not the same
who wanted
thing.
to pray at midfield. Here's what he was trying to get at. That decision basically said there used to be a lemon test, which is the rules you can use to determine if something violates church-state separation. And the Bremerton case, the Kennedy case, officially had the conservatives saying the lemon test is dead. And this monument, this guy's saying, is see, it's fine because church-state separation no longer is a thing. I think that's what he was trying to say, but no, that's not how it works.
It's not an unfair reading of the country right now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So at the time in August, the Freedom from Religion Foundation legal fellow Hirsch Joshi, he sends a letter to this county board, and he says all the usual things about why this is illegal. But he also points out this monument is brand new, which kind of knocks out your only plausible path to let this be legal. Here's what he wrote. This monument is not part of Jefferson County's long-standing history because the monument was erected less than a week ago. Yeah. This does not come close. He said this does not come close to the so-called history and tradition test, which was discussed in Kennedy.
Funny.
It's what the hell are you people doing?
Oh,
this is totally
my God.
wrong.
Just the least accurate reading of anything.
Yeah. So making matters worse for the country, the sheriff never publicized or announced that they were installing this monument.
Oh, good.
He pulled a Roy Moore and installed it in the courthouse in the middle of the night like Moore did in Alabama in 2001 when he was the chief Supreme Court justice of the state at the time.
And they know they're doing a bad.
Yeah.
They know they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
They know they're being assholes. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so fucking sneaky about it.
Here's the thing. It was only after it was installed in the courthouse that local reporters are like, oh, wait, what the hell just happened here? Here's what they wrote in the local newspaper. In March of 2024, a group of several interested Jefferson County churches and private individuals came forward to provide the financial support needed to get the monument placed at the local courthouse. According to Bullard, the project was completed and delivered by some marble company. They, along with a towing company, did an outstanding job of creating and installing it, which took place Friday morning, August 23rd.
Friday morning?
A private ceremony unveiling the new monument took place on Sunday, August 25th. I thank everyone who supported and encouraged this project to restore a piece of our heritage and history in Jefferson County.
Restore a piece of our heritage and history.
Right.
Those are deeply inaccurate ways to describe
and again,
everything.
He unveils this on a Sunday. Guess what's closed on a Sunday? Courthouses. Yeah. So this monument, nothing to do with heritage, nothing to do with history. It obviously, I know we've said this, but like a Ten Commandments display sends a very clear message that the Christian book of rules, and a very specific brand at that, overrides the Constitution and state laws. The implication is if you walk into that building and you're not a Christian, you're not going to get a fair shake in that county courthouse because they don't follow the rules. Obviously, many of the commandments are completely detached from secular law. Like the government should not care if you keep the Sabbath day holy.
I don't think the government shouldn't care if I covet something. In fact, I would argue that capitalism is all about coveting shit.
Patreon.com/friendly atheist podcast.
Oh my God, I just got an overdraft alert from my phone, please.
Patreon.
Truly, these people spending all this money and
how much do you think it cost? Did they raise?
Is it negative 76? Because that's how much money I have.
$10,000 is what they raised for this monument. So the county never responded to FFRF's letter. And in the months to follow, I think the sheriff got in touch with lawyers, like right-wing crazy-ass lawyers, who are like, my dude, what are you doing? Because even then they're like, wait, you have a Bible verse under the commandments?
Yeah, right.
There's no public record of you doing any of this stuff?
Oh my God. And it's designed so poorly.
And that's the graphic design you use? Yeah. So he spoke to lawyers who clearly told him, my dude, you need to fix some shit. So he made a few changes. He covered up the Bible verse at the bottom of the base.
What, like with a little velvet rope around it?
With like a steel sensor bar.
Funny.
And he calls up another company. He's like, I need you to move this outside to the lawn, because I guess I can't have it inside the building. So now this monument, same one, is now sitting on the lawn outside the courthouse.
Which is,
with the
I don't
Bible
know if
verse
it's
covered
worse, but it's just as bad because now it's just assaulting people as they
when
walk by.
Past. Yeah, and the thing is, it's still the Ten Commandments on courthouse property.
Yeah, no, he didn't do anything.
He did not. So, with that in mind, now FFRF, the ACLU of Illinois, the ACLU National have now sued the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners because they allowed this shit to happen.
Yeah.
They didn't go after the sheriff. They went after the board.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they include several details. This is where I was like...
Because they're supposed to know better and the sheriff is just an idiot?
Pretty much.
Oh.
And I went from being annoyed by the story to laughing my ass off because FFRF included so many details in this thing. Because, in the past several months, they filed the Freedom of Information Act request. Like, give us everything that you got with, like, commandments in it.
Yes.
And so they have details. Here's some of the stuff that they have in here. The lawsuit says Bullard, the sheriff, used official government resources, channels, and personnel to promote, finance, and install the monument. He circulated a donation pledge form to several potential donors, which stated that solicited donations go to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 10 Commandments Project for 2024.
Oh, they're so subtle.
He directed donors to make their checks out to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office Chaplaincy Division to be deposited into the government account for that group and to mail the checks directly to his office. And then he instructed donors to drop off physical checks at his office. That's how he got the $10,000. Some of the cash came directly from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office chaplains.
This genuinely sounds like LBJ's Senate campaign. Just like checks showing up everywhere.
Yes. Another problem, when he spoke to the companies constructing the monument, he didn't do this in some private capacity. He's like, thanks, signed, sheriff. By the way, the people who gave the money knew exactly what they were doing. And they were like, you know how you're supposed to be like, I'm glad you're restoring heritage
Wink.
to our county. No, here's what a church pastor said in a letter that included a check for $500. I'm
so happy.
We're thankful to have a sheriff who not only has biblical beliefs, but is also willing to stand for those beliefs in such a great way. Our prayer is that this will not only serve as a symbol of what God's standard for living is, but that this will also serve as a missions opportunity to point people to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. It's like, you're not supposed to say that out loud.
Yeah, you said all this stuff out loud. You have no leg to stand on.
Yeah. The lawsuit also says this guy's office.
Do they not know that FOIAs are a thing? Like, do they not? Do they
Central
think?
rural state.
Can you send me down there on a reporting trip? Because I would really enjoy that.
The lawsuit says Bullard's office knew this might be a problem because the deputy sheriff writes in an email to employees that, hey, if you're asked about the source of the monument,
Be fucking cool, guys.
you should say it's, quote, paid for through donations. And then he added, the Supreme Court overturned the separation of church and state.
He did not say that.
Said that in friggin' writing.
Just that sentence? The Supreme Court overturned everything?
He sent out an email to employees, and he's like, hey, here's what I have to say about the budget. Here's what I have to say about our disaster readiness plan. And then number 3 on the list, courthouse. Large granite 10 commandments will be placed in the courthouse. If asked, it was paid for through donations. The Supreme Court overturned the separation of church and state. Any complaints, refer them to the sheriff. Then he moves on to the next item.
Oh my fucking
Wait, it gets
God.
better. It gets better. On the weekend, the Sunday that the monument was installed, or sorry, the Friday, and then the unveiling on Sunday, a memo was sent out urging employees to keep the public the fuck out. Quote, do not let people gather around when delivered. And then when he invited donors to celebrate the installation on the Sunday, he told everyone like, shh, no news or social media. And then he got on-duty cops to make sure to work as bouncers and make sure only invited guests attended the ceremony.
Just like Jesus did.
Yeah. So then they FOIA'd like,
Oh my
tell us about
God,
your
what?
conversations with these right-wing lawyers that you talked to after you installed the monument.
Tell me.
And it turns out First Liberty said the monument needs to be moved outside, which is a weird suggestion since that doesn't resolve anything.
Super doesn't.
But also, we found out, guess how much that relocation cost?
Ooh, $10,000.
$5,250. $5,250. But here's the thing. He only raised like $10,300.
Okay.
Monument costs like $10,000. So he has
So who
$300 sitting in the
paid?
bank. So where are you getting $5,300 from? He plucked it from the county's Chirper Fund, CHIRPER. What is a Chirper Fund?
I don't know.
It's the public fund meant to help prisoners communicate with their loved ones.
Cool. What a cool
Like,
dude.
oh, you can't afford to make phone calls outside jail? Well, we have a public fund that is supposed to cover the costs if you need to talk to people. So we took money from that account.
The Residence just is that show I was talking about last week, and there's a scene where the social secretary is like trying to do something, and someone's like, where are you getting the budget for this? She was like, I don't know. It's just money. It comes from a different pile of money. That's how money works.
Yeah.
And that is how I feel right now.
And another thing they added is that the reason they're suing the county commission is because they clearly knew about stuff. And in
knew it was
fact,
wrong.
And knew it was wrong. The county commissioners did not do anything to take down the monument at any time. In fact, when they asked their county attorney, his name is Sean Featherston, he was stunned. I don't know. Here's what he said. Featherston advised he had consulted 4 lawyers, all of whom indicated that the monument raised serious legal concerns.
Okay.
With the best advice from them being,
Don't.
hope you're insured. Featherston?
No.
Yeah. And this lawyer is now telling the commissioners, like, that's what the lawyers I talked to told me. He expressed frustration that he was not consulted before the monument went up.
Oh.
And he noted that his analysis does not change based on you moving it outside. Featherston identified several factors that could weigh against the monument's legality, noting that an inconspicuous monument appears safer than a large prominent one. So like, you could have done a tiny one.
You could have done
a tiny
so
one.
many other
He also
things.
said having religious donors undermines the argument that this is non-religious. And he also noted that just taken by themselves, because you don't have any other monuments, the symbolism of the Ten Commandments is largely understood to be religious. And then despite all those concerns, the board members said they voted to keep the monument on the courthouse lawn. And one of the commissioners, the lawsuit said he's willing to roll the dice because the board, quote, gets sued all the time.
Send me down there. Please. I want to talk to them.
So the plaintiffs in this lawsuit are several Jefferson County residents, who, including a Christian pastor, who are like, this does not belong here. The pastor, by the way, says in the lawsuit, the monument demeans and trivializes a holy text by turning it into a lawn decoration. There's another Catholic plaintiff who says, I object because this version of the commandments doesn't line up with my beliefs. And by the way, the version that you did use has been used in the past to condemn my religious practice.
Which
like just the specifics, like this is the right way, you're worshiping the wrong way. Anyway, this goes on for a while. Like even if they did everything by the book and pretended this was about heritage and history, they still would have an uphill climb trying to convince a judge this is secular.
Yeah.
But when you look at all the evidence of what they said and did and where the money came from and how they're clearly trying to hide their true religious intentions, I don't know how they I don't know how they get through with this.
I mean, the only thing that can happen is they fucking luck out with a judge who is a Trump appointee and is like, I don't care.
Well, it's a state court. So was this a federal lawsuit? I don't remember. But
actually, that's a good question.
It doesn't matter because...
Well, you said the ACLU of Illinois is suing, so probably a state?
Yeah, they are filing this in an Illinois court.
Okay.
So it's an Illinois issue. But again, it's beyond the point. The point is... Any judge looking at this is like, man, the facts are not what I want them to be, so I got to rule against you, I would think.
Oh my God. Just the fact these guys are like the little rascals running around trying to like make plans and sneak by things and wearing little costumes. Like, oh my God, these fucking Have you tried helping the people in your county? May I suggest?
It's not what they give donations for.
May I suggest helping people?
Dude, they're taking money away from prisoners who can't afford to call home.
These people are monsters.
Yeah. I got one last one for you only because we missed this last week.
How do they have the moral high ground? I know I ask that a lot, but how
they
fucking dare they have the moral high ground on this?
If you read the commandments,
stole money from prisoners.
Who have so much. All right, one last story for you before we're done, only because we missed this last week because it happened right as we basically recorded. The Supreme Court last week, in a unanimous decision, basically made it easier for groups that are very loosely affiliated with a religion to claim faith-based tax exemptions.
Uh-oh.
And it's worth talking about where this story came from. In Wisconsin, they have a thing called the Unemployment Compensation Act. Basically, any employer in the state, they have to pay taxes to help pay eligible citizens temporary benefits when they're out of work. Unemployment tax, right?
Yeah.
In 1972, religious nonprofits were declared exempt from the law. Specifically, in 72, Wisconsin passed a law that said nonprofits that are run by a church or ministry and that operate primarily for religious purposes do not have to pay into the system.
Okay.
Now, I would argue, how come just religious nonprofits? But that's the rule they went with. In 2023, like for years, Catholic Charities Bureau, which is a group that oversees like a handful of different groups that do genuinely good work, they applied for that tax exemption because they never had in the past. They said, well, we're a religious nonprofit. Well, we're not a religious nonprofit. We just do food services and job placement. We're not a religious group, even though we have Catholic in our name, so we're not eligible for the tax break. So they never bothered applying for it since 72. But a few years ago, they were like, wait, we have Catholic in our name and we can get a tax break? All right, let's apply for the tax exemption.
Okay.
And they never got it. They kept getting turned away. And basically in 2023, they appealed a decision by a judge. And an appellate court said, no, you're not eligible for the tax exemption. We know you are Catholic in name. We know you are technically run by the Catholic diocese. But the work you are doing is not religious. Because when it comes to job placement, food services, helping people with developmental disabilities, those are all good and important things you are doing. But like, and the group says helping the poor and disadvantaged, that is an extension of our faith. And the courts are like, well, that's fine. but there's nothing religious about what you are doing. Like a secular nonprofit could do the work you are doing, and they would have to pay into the system, so you have to pay into the system. So that's the conflict that was happening. So the Catholic Charities group said, we were paying the unemployment taxes because our work is charitable, educational, and rehabilitative, and not religious. But in 2015, they were like, wait, we could save money. Let's try to get this exemption. They kept getting shot down, and the appellate court shot them down. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court last year decided to take up this case because they got another appeal. And remember the Wisconsin Supreme Court has had like the past 2 battles to seat a Democrat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Huge national races. Lots of money involved. And the Democrats won both of those races. They have a 4-3 majority on the court. So when the Wisconsin Supreme Court said, we're going to hear this case, it's like, okay, maybe they'll come to this. Well, they arrived at the same conclusion as all the other judges. They said, we can't just look at how the Catholic Church is at the top of your organizational pyramid. Like, otherwise, everything under them counts as religious, even if it's not. Like what happened? I'm making this up. Like if they own a McDonald's, you can't just say it's religious just because the Catholic Church owns it.
Okay.
It's like, let's look at what you are doing. We're looking at your activities, not your motivation, is what the Supreme Court said. So they said, we don't care if you claim to be Catholic. Any organization can say they are religious in nature and then get out of paying the tax. Let's look at what you are doing. And when the justice looked at that, what they said is the Catholic Charities Bureau and the sub-entities, they neither attempt to imbue program participants with the Catholic faith, like they're not shoving their faith in the participant spaces, nor do they supply any religious materials to program participants or employees. Like you are primarily charitable and secular. What you are doing is a holy, WHOLLY, it's a wholly secular endeavor. And such services can be provided by organizations of either religious or secular motivations, and the services would not be any different. So they said, an objective examination of the actual activities of CCB and its subentities reveal that the activities are secular in nature. We therefore conclude that you're not operating for religious purposes. So you don't get a tax break. So you pay the unemployment taxes. Now, there might have been a different outcome if the Catholic Church was literally running these organizations, but they're not. They oversaw them at like arm's length, and it was fine. Like, it was kind of surprising because it kind of felt courageous for them to do that. Just because an organization claims it's religious doesn't make it religious. That's you don't hear that every day.
No, you don't.
Even though you should.
That's sort of an interesting...
Like the Supreme Court's like, Hobby Lobby? Sure, you're a Christian company now because your owners are, so they can impose whatever faith stuff they want. But here's Wisconsin Supreme Court saying, we don't care if you have Catholic in your name. You're not doing religious proselytizing. Right? And the fear was that had the Wisconsin Supreme Court gone the other way, what happens next? What about religious hospitals, which employ a ton of people? What about Marquette University, which is religious in name, but basically operates
you
secularly?
went to a Catholic university.
To get my master's degree, I went to a technically Catholic school, but like...
Loyola is technically Catholic, DePaul, a lot of them.
A lot of them are. And the thing is, like, I'm sure they have Catholic somewhere in their ethos or whatever. Didn't affect me. It didn't affect any of my classes. I just got my...
There's not an asterisk next to your master's.
Right, exactly. And
what's your master's in? Teaching
no
or
one knows.
Math?
It's something. I've never seen the degree. I don't know. I'm sure I graduated because I took the classes,
and
did not attend graduation. I'm sure I got it in the mail. I don't know. I think I graduated. Anyway.
God, you have a joyless life.
Completely. So, by the way, those 3 dissenting justices, here's how bad they are at their job. They're like, you guys, it's totally a Catholic group. She opened up her dissent with a Bible verse, which you're not helping your case.
You're nailing this.
Anyway, so the right-wing groups that defended the Catholic Church in this case and the Catholic Charities Bureau, they were like, no, we want you to declare anything that's religious to be tax exempt because we like that. And the Supreme Court earlier this year said, oh, yeah, we're taking up this case. And it's like, oh, this can't be good. Like, and the question was not, are you going to reverse the ruling? Yeah, of course they're going to reverse the ruling. It's, what are you going to do? Are you going to say narrow ruling and like that Catholic Charities Bureau does not have to pay taxes? Or are they going to say, if you say you're religious, no one has to pay taxes? Like, that's the fear. We don't know how narrow or broad this decision's going to be.
Oh, boy.
So, Supreme Court finally weighed in last week. 9-0 ruling. Sonia Sotomayor was the justice assigned to this case. She wrote the decision.
Okay.
Which, just based on that alone, you're like, I don't love this, but also it's not Alito writing it.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, is this one of those things where a liberal justice says, all right, we lost this one. I'm going to go ahead and side with you on this. Give me the majority opinion. I want to write it. And they find a way to do the least possible damage.
Okay.
That's possible. Not a legal expert, but that is one argument I've heard floating around. So what Sotomayor wrote on behalf of the whole court is that Wisconsin went too far in denying the tax exemption to the Catholic group by basically punishing Catholic Charities, because this is what the justices wrote in Wisconsin. She said, you're mad at them. You're punishing them by making them pay this tax because you say they don't proselytize to the people they're helping and they don't do anything Catholic-y. So you're saying, so they do have to pay the taxes. So what you're saying is, if there was, I'm talking here, not Sonia Sotomayor. She's saying like, well, if there was a different group that imposed their religion on someone else, or if they said, hey, we're only going to help you get job services if you claim to be Catholic, you're basically saying they would be allowed to get away with it and get a tax exemption. But because this Catholic group said, we don't care what religion you are, we want to help you, and we're not going to force our faith on you, you are punishing them for their practice of their faith, which doesn't involve proselytizing.
I guess.
Right? So here's what she actually wrote. Wisconsin's exemption, as interpreted by its Supreme Court, grants a denominational preference by explicitly differentiating between religions based on theological practices. You would give a break to a Catholic group that promoted their faith in their work, but you're not giving a tax break to a Catholic group that is not promoting their faith in their work because you don't like the way they practice their faith. Not like, but you're treating it differently.
Sure.
So much like, so basically what she's saying is there's got to be neutrality between religions.
Sure.
And she wrote, there may be hard calls to make in policing that rule, but this is not one. Okay. So she says, we're sending this back to the lower courts. Take our advice into consideration and you deal with it. Now, what happens? That's the question now. Remember, the dissenters on the Wisconsin Supreme Court would have blown this issue out of proportion by like allowing any group that just says we're connected to a religion, so we don't have to pay unemployment taxes. Her ruling at least requires the exempted groups to have a formal religious connection, even if they're doing work that is not explicitly religious. So that's great news for Catholic Charities. I don't know what it means in terms of everybody else, because couldn't they just say, hey, we're a Catholic hospital, the Catholic bishops oversee us, so we do have formal ties, and guess what? That's like the largest employer in the state of Wisconsin.
I mean,
what about the Catholic universities that are tied?
It does seem like there's very little concern of the fact that taxes are important and we need them to help. Like, I would not be living in this house if there weren't unemployment insurance in Illinois, because my husband and I have both been out of work. So to me, that is sort of the big loser here is...
Right.
We're not going to take care of...
How would Wisconsin cover unemployment taxes in this case if so many groups that cover a lot of people bow out of the system? And we don't know if they're going to use this decision to get out of paying the taxes they owe, because again, what's stopping more hospitals and schools from prioritizing their pocketbooks over people? The Freedom from Religion Foundation said, like, they're worried about the slippery slope. They're based in Wisconsin. They said hundreds of thousands of employees, including those at Catholic-affiliated hospitals, could potentially lose the benefit of unemployment insurance. They also pointed out the court's decision could allow religiously affiliated organizations, including over half of the 10 largest Catholic health systems in the U.S., to potentially claim exemptions from unemployment insurance and countless other government regulations.
Well, I mean, they already don't pay property tax. And
so no one really knows how this decision is going to be used to further destroy the social safety net. But looking at the people involved, it will somehow. We just don't necessarily know the method.
How can we hurt poor people more?
Yeah. And again, Sotomayor is the one who wrote that one, and you have to ask yourself, is this the best version of a losing case?
Yeah.
Or what? So anyway, just wanted to cover that story since it happened last week, and that's all I got right
that's
now.
it. We've only been recording for 17 hours.
That is correct. So next week we are taking a break. I'll post an interview I did about the Southern Baptist Convention's annual meeting. I hope you listen to that. We'll be back in 2 weeks. What are we talking about in the bonus episode?
Oh, actually, not necessarily for the bonus episode, but I just found out that my college roommate and her coworkers all got laid off from the Indiana libraries. They were historians, and so Indiana is really doing its best to be the worst state in the union, which, once again...
There's competition.
There is competition, but absolutely fuck Indiana. Absolutely fuck Indiana. I just got to the part of the LBJ book when JFK was killed. So far, there's been, I think, 6 chapters on like a day and a half. It's been amazing.
Yeah. It's the best part of that book.
Oh, it's so good. Here you go. Here's a little hint for the bonus. I cried in a Hooters over the JFK assassination.
It's the whitest fucking thing you've ever said.
I know. Also, the movie Dogma is back out in the world. I'll explain what's going on with that. But
I watched a movie too. I will talk about that.
Are you going to say what movie it was?
Nope.
Sure, that's it then.
All right. And you can always support us by going to patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast. Leave a review on the site.
Oh, yeah.
And
there's been some good reviews lately. I read them sometimes before I go to sleep if I'm feeling sad.
the worst possible
I know.
thing you could do.
Listen, I don't know. I am a broken person. Okay.
I don't read the comments on my own site.
Okay, this is from Chelsea, but CH.EL.SEA. On
done.
Friday. The best. 5 stars. A recent episode was recorded at night, and Jessica was more effervescent than usual. I was a little drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And Hemet was mildly kinder. This is not a jab at Hemet. He's integral in his capacity for sorting through and reporting these stories week after week is incomprehensible to someone whose mental health is hanging on by a thread. Thank you, Hemet. All that to say, I just want the best for Jessica. Oklahoma. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that. You honestly, last week was I thought a fun episode.
There you go. All right, we'll see you in
the
2
bonus.
weeks. And the bonus.
Okay, bye.